Okay, hello everyone. This is Paul Kramer. I'm the chair of the examinations subcommittee of the Committee of Bar Examiners. I see we have quite a few people. My list is still populating. People who have called in as attendees. Oh, it's getting huge now. What we are going to do today, because we have some important business that's of interest to specific applicants who have requested testing accommodations, we're going to limit the public comment portion of our agenda to the first 15 minutes, and then we're going to go into closed session. So those of you who wish to make a comment, raise your hand, which you do either by using the raise hand function on Zoom, or if you have called in just with your telephone, you can press *9 on your telephone and that should raise your hand. I see, let's see, about 11 so far, a couple more. We're going to limit you to 1 minute. And sorry for those who we don't have time for today. Let me just say that our task today is simply to deal with the testing accommodation appeals. We won't be talking about either an open or closed session, the bar exam. And we understand that the Supreme Court will be deciding at some point what to do with the bar exam, so that we are not directly involved in that decision at this point. You are free, of course, to provide us with your comments. Those of you who cannot get on today to provide oral comments, we encourage you to provide written comments. You can email them to Kim Wong. Kim, could you give us your email address?
Yes, it's actually posted on the website. It's kim.wong@calbar.ca.gov.
Okay, so Kim is our committee secretary, and what she's been doing for us is gathering comments as they've been coming in, and they've been coming in nearly every day, it seems, and then she distributes those to the committee, and I assume to others throughout the bar and perhaps even to the Supreme Court. Does the court get those, Kim? Do you know?
We had that inbox for all the California bar exam public comments box pertaining to the fall California bar exam. So if you, again, I'd be happy to forward it to the court as well.
Okay. I think they're at this point, they're best addressed to the court since they are making the decision. So without further ado, Devin, let's we'll go down the list as I see them. The first is Pilar.
Paul, sorry. Do you mind, Kim, just taking roll really quick?
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
I do need to take roll of the committee.
Sure. James Acting.
Present.
Anjali Agatep.
Here.
Esther Lin.
Here.
Vince Reyes.
Here.
Judge Shelly Toliaba.
Here.
And Patricia Villalobos.
Here.
Okay. Of course, the chair is here, Paul Kramer. We have the quorum.
Okay, so let's begin with Pilar Escontrias. You have 1 minute.
Yes, thank you. Before I take up any time from others to speak, is this meeting only about appeals to accommodations, or is this open public comment for general discussions related to accommodations? Because I don't want to take up time from others.
Oh, you can certainly comment about the accommodations process if you like, if you have something to say relevant to that.
Great, thank you so much. I'll just be very quick then and allow for others. So I am speaking here on behalf of around 2,000 JD and LLM graduates, practicing attorneys and professors. We're a united coalition seeking emergency diploma privilege, and I just wanted to bring this committee's attention to a couple pieces of data. In our survey that we've sent out in late June, we had over 1,400 folks fill it out, and of those 1,400, 12.7% are have a disability or a condition that would require bar exam accommodations or accommodations generally in the practice of law. Many folks shared with us what their concerns were related to taking an online examination, particularly in light of the fact that AI proctoring, as this committee well knows, is very problematic in terms of highlighting behaviors that could be viewed as cheating. So I asked this committee to keep in mind and to center those folks who need accommodations, to remember that AI proctoring, in fact, does discriminate against people who do have certain disabilities. Further, the fact that individuals have to go in for a present in-person exam is absolutely atrocious, simply because they need to seek accommodations. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next, Jonathan Korn.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm an applicant who has requested accommodations and who is immunocompromised. I want to address the plan to provide accommodations in person. This is not a safe plan, even if you have one person per room and even if the proctor is outside the room. Also note, under this plan, people like me would bear additional risks and costs outside of the test day. I would need to fly from out of state, exposing myself to risk, rent a hotel for 2 weeks for quarantine, and figure out all the risks and costs for transportation. I've lost a lot of sleep in the past week over this plan, and I've booked an appointment with my doctor to discuss options, but as of now, I would rather forfeit my job and not take the bar under these conditions. I want to note that even if you think that conditions are safe now, and they're not, to do accommodations in person, I challenge you to identify a threshold and a plan for if there are just too many cases and deaths to do this, and recognize also that no one can predict that future. This week, with 2 weeks to go till the exam, several states have canceled their in-person bar exams. Ask yourself whether you want to be in an emergency meeting a few weeks before the fall exam because of extremely high spread and illness, having to decide how to roll back this plan for in-person accommodations. I hope you don't have to go to those meetings and that no applicant will have to be in person during a pandemic. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Next will be Nada Elshaari. And those of you who have spoken, if you can unraise your hand, that'll help us keep track of things. Nada, go
Hi,
ahead.
can everyone hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
To say, I resonate with the previous comments that were stated. I think any in-person accommodations is really truly out of the question, given that California is already shutting down again because of the increasing cases of coronavirus. And additionally, I don't really see any feasible avenue of taking the bar exam on the computer, just given the fact that it's highly difficult to do so when we don't have printed out pieces of paper that we can highlight, underline, and circle pertaining to the questions. And so I resonate with what Pilar said in terms of diploma privilege, and I truly hope that, in considering any sort of accommodations, this committee can reach that conclusion that there really is no other avenue besides diploma privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Weinstein.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to speak. I appreciate it, and it's my objective to truly add value today. I understand you've been tasked to perform the impossible, but you've proven capable at the baby bar was executed with success. This isn't a great surprise to me as someone who took the baby bar 3 years ago. I have direct experience with the accommodations team, and it was incredibly positive. While I didn't leave thinking I passed, I did leave being impressed with the manner I was treated and at all times received a high degree of respect and dignity. In short, I have zero complaints. The objective today is to comment on my desire to take the full bar exam on a level playing field with the other candidates. My understanding based on the baby bar and through the previous comments here is that it's intended to be taken in person. I believe the requirement places a disabled takers at a significant and material disadvantage for the following reasons. Non-accommodated test takers are able to study during the most valuable time while the disabled are required to travel. Non-accommodated test takers are able to test in a familiar environment, which is relatively less stressful than testing a new and unknown place.
Thank you for your comment.
Non-accommodated takers do not have to necessarily move the computer equipment, which can be a catalyst for computer issues.
You need to wrap it up.
Non-accommodating do not have to travel and don't have the expenses. Furthermore, as somebody who is intending to take the exam using speech to text software, I find wearing a mask is going to put me at a cognitive
So you've gone over your time. So thank you. Next will be Kylie Stackalis.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi. I have narcolepsy and I haven't heard back about my accommodations. So I'm just wondering when they will be out. I'm concerned because of the AI cheating. Like I asked, part of my accommodations were so I could move around so I can stay awake. And I don't want to be accused of cheating just for trying to move around and stay awake. And I'm kind of scared that it's essay only because the essay is where my disability really gets me. And that's all I have to say. I just want to know what's going on.
Okay, well, we won't discuss specific cases today. You'd need to communicate with the staff. Next will be Amir Nezarati.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, we do. Go ahead.
Thank you for having this meeting with us. I'm advocate of diploma for privilege for the reason that I heard from Donna in the July 7 that if just in case something's going wrong with our exam, there's an emergency line that we can contact. But I realistically think, first of all, if you're supposed to contact if anything goes wrong with the software, specifically ExamSoft, we need to have a cell phone next to us ready to call, which actually will expose us to the cheating. That's a big issue here. Second, I believe if, for example, 30% of exam takers having the same problem at the same time, ExamSoft doesn't have the customer service of like 3,000 people be ready to answer our calls, and every second for us matter. And that's why I think this exam will not be really practical for us and actually expose so much more stress on us. That makes it unfair to have it at this time unless we testing everything and we sure the ExamSoft is really able to solve the issue just in case if it's happening in fraction of a second. Thank you.
Thank you. Person with the initials ZZZZ, go ahead. You may be muted at your end. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try Nick Yanez.
Hi there. A remote exam is being contemplated for the general applicant pool, but as it currently stands, accommodated applicants are still supposed to be taking an in-person exam. So I'm concerned that this week's announcement may result in a remote exam for everyone else, but force applicants with disabilities to take a risk that authorities will have already assessed to be generally unsafe. And to the extent that accommodated applicants will have to take an in-person exam, I'd like some clarity as to whether renewed shutdown announcements like the one the governor recently made would impact an on-site exam administration if it were to hold over until the exam date. Another concern I have is that an in-person exam would force immunocompromised applicants to out themselves to potential employers. In other words, if someone qualifies for accommodations but cannot be in public during the pandemic due to a compromised immune system, they will not only have to tell a state authority why if they're self-advocating, but also may be put in a position to have to tell a potential post-bar employer why they have to postpone their exam while they wait for a vaccine, which is totally contrary to California totally contrary to California privacy public policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, we're getting near the end here. One more from Morgan Kimmey.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Morgan Kimmey. I am a student with disabilities, and I have a lot of concerns. One is that the process for applying for accommodations is already pretty burdensome. I mean, it cost me several $1,000s to get the testing required. I'm not alone. I also submitted 267 pages of my disabilities in, I believe, January, heard back in March, and then appealed, which I submitted 85 more pages, including documentation from doctors, which required me to go into multiple doctors' offices and hospitals, exposing me at a time when things were very scary. And the idea of having people with accommodations take it in person does raise the issue of, now we have to travel, we have additional expenses incurred. If we have to wear a mask, if you have anxiety or you have an anxiety attack during the bar exam, which is highly likely, like how are you supposed to breathe? There's a lot of problems there. So I support diploma privilege. I think that this is unduly burdensome.
Okay, thank you. Folks, we're sorry, but we do need to limit the public comment today because we need to get to the business of reviewing the testing accommodation appeals that are before this subcommittee today. So those of you who are unable to orally state your comments, we encourage you to put them in writing. You can simply email them to Kim Wong, whose email address, Kim, can you say it one more time for us?
It's kim.wong@calbar.ca.gov.
Okay, and as far as the news on the latest news on what's happening with the bar exam, the format, all the other details, I believe Amy Nunez, you've said before people should look to their account on the portal for news. Is there anywhere else they should look?
Yes, absolutely. So we're in the process of also developing frequently asked questions and FAQs section on our website. So please go to the State Bar Admissions website and on a daily basis, because these FAQs will be updated as often as necessary. So the two areas that I suggest everybody be consistent about reviewing is your Ames portal, because that's where you'll get feedback. There seem to be a lot of questions about individual cases. That will be in the Ames portal individually. And then also on our website, the FAQs that are forthcoming. Thanks.
Okay,
Paul.
thank you. Well, with that, we are going to go into closed session. So members of the subcommittee, you need to get out of this Zoom meeting, which will be held open for those of you in the public if you want to wait to see when we come back. But I can tell you that when we come back, we will simply report that we are done. We don't normally report the results of our deliberations on these private matters, and we should have nothing else to report. But you're free to stick around in this Zoom meeting, and we'll be back. Hard to say when, but probably closer to the top of the hour. Thank you for attending. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your continued interest in the bar exam during these interesting times. So committee members, let's head off to the other meeting. And thank you all again. Bye-bye.